The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shaylin Herrick. I'm the Director of Marketing for SOS Online Backup, and I am joined by Derek Wood, our Partner Product Manager. If I can just get a quick show of hands in the chat tool as to how many people can hear me and see the poll that is on screen, that would be great. Then I can know that everything is working correctly. And while I get those answers, I love that so many of you are already filling out the poll. That's really, really helpful to us because that will help us tailor the presentation and tailor the demo and make sure that we know exactly who you are and what your needs are. So I am not getting any confirmation so far. Okay, Philip says yes, he can hear me. Okay, great. Anybody else? I want to make sure that we don't have any problems. Okay. Lovely. Very, very good. As we wait for more people to pop on, I'm just going to leave the poll on for a little bit longer, about 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get started. Okay, we are ready to get started. Thank you all for participating in the poll. It looks like just about everybody did. Most of you are working with small to medium-sized businesses, it looks like, with about 1 to 10 servers. A few of you have clients with businesses that are larger than that. So I think this presentation is definitely going to be helpful to you because small to medium-sized businesses are absolutely what SOS ServerSafe is designed for and what our 360-degree partner program is designed for. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, we are going to talk a little bit about who is SOS. Also, how do we fit in the industry, and what kind of opportunity is there for you as a reseller? And as we go on throughout the presentation, I definitely encourage you guys to ask questions and use the questions tool, as many of you already have. And you do have to ask a question in order to enter the drawing for the Kindle. So please send in your questions, and Derek and I will answer them for you. So let's talk a bit about the industry. SOS Online Backup is a technology leader in consumer and SMB backup. As you guys probably know, consumer backup was definitely where online backup really got started. And there's still a great deal of growth in the area, but the biggest area of growth is for small to medium-sized businesses and enterprises. What we've got in the lower right-hand corner of the screen here is some really interesting information by IDC, which is an analyst group similar to Forrester or just the think tanks. They're think tanks that go around and surveying businesses around the world and in the United States to get some idea of what trends they're seeing, what things they're doing within their business, and how maybe businesses like yours and mine can make decisions based on that trend information. And they surveyed businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, so companies with less than 500 employees, about what their plans were in terms of online backup adoption. 16% of these companies surveyed by IDC said that they were using online backup today, right now. That's not very many. 69% said that they were evaluating it or planning to use it. That's huge. That's your market opportunity. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of businesses are planning to use online backup. 69% of bu Now that sounds pretty exciting, I think. And a lot of things are propelling this trend towards online backup adoption. Expansion of internet bandwidth. It's easier to put information up in the cloud. Decrease of hostage storage costs. It's cheaper to put stuff in the cloud. Technical sophistication of the population. More people understand what it means to put information in the cloud. And a significant increase in size and value of digital data. More people, just like you and me, are creating digital data with greater frequency and in greater volume than we ever were before. We're taking pictures, we're recording audio. I mean, we're recording this webinar right now. That's going to be an hour's worth of important digital data. And we want to keep it safe, and we want to be able to recover it if something bad happens. So let's go ahead and move on to the next screen. This screen discusses what we call a price functionality inflection point. And that's really to speak to the type of technology that's used for backup. How many of you have clients that had been using tape backup for their servers and for their endpoint protection? And if so, then they're probably considering online backup, and reason is good. So I'm sorry about that for a second. We were having a slight technical difficulty. So the price functionality inflection point is approaching, and so that means that tape backup is becoming slightly more expensive and less reliable than online backup is. If you're a business, you clearly want to shift that competency in backup off-site. It's efficient for you to do so. You don't have to have people on-site managing it. You can have a managed service provider assisting you. You can also have a company like SOS Online Backup managing the technology and managing the security behind your backups.
And as we look in the program a little more, one of the big parts about the growth in this industry is that online backup has been primarily in the consumer space, or those small home offices that didn't have a lot of pain when it came to switching from some older, expensive, bulky program like a tape system. You know, most customers spend somewhere between 3 and 6 months listening to different evaluations and pitches on these types of systems, and then another couple months implementing, and it's expensive, it's bulky, and they want it to last as long as it possibly can. So their willingness to switch to new technology is a lot less than, say, a consumer would, is maybe they have nothing in place at all. And what we're seeing is the market is now going to a position where it's no longer, again, people who don't understand it or are not sure of the security behind it. All these things are proven. So the adoption rate is really just a matter of time. And this year and the next year are expected to be the big growth rates, not only in just the adoption, but in the scope of adoption per environment. So whereas you had 16% of the businesses said they had some sort of online backup in place, about 3/4 of those said that what they had in place was really just an extended trial period, and they had yet to really move into a full online backup solution. So now we're going to see not only an increase in adoption, but an increase in the scope of adoption. So rather than, you know, maybe just for simple numbers, 10% or 1% of their IT budget going towards online backup services, now maybe 3% of their budget goes towards online backup services. And that's actually data that the IDC is touting for the industry overall, is that the overall expenditure in IT services is going from 1 to 3% just in the cloud-based.
It sounds like small numbers, but it's actually pretty big. That's a doubling of the amount of spend on cloud services.
Yeah.
And if you're curious about reading that paper, you can definitely ask your partner specialist, and they can get that for you. So what kind of features are SMBs looking for? Well, in the next wave of online backup adoption, which is what we're calling this 1 to 2 year period in which the online backup industry for businesses is definitely going to explode, and demand is going to be huge for you guys, for MSPs as well as providers. The SMBs and enterprises that are going to be adopting online backup are looking for total business protection. They're looking for coverage for workstations, servers, laptops, and mobile devices. This is total endpoint protection, total server protection. They want to be able to back up all their servers with one platform. How many of you guys right now are using multiple products to back up your client servers and endpoints? You can just type in the questions tool so that we can know how many of you are experiencing that right now. That'd be great.
And also, what different strategies are you employing? Usually a different service means a different type of backup strategy, whether it's a different type of recovery or a different type of backup. The reason we go into this is because risk management is something that inherently all IT service providers are. We're all risk managers. The problem with risk management is it sounds old, it sounds unnecessary, it sounds expensive. So when we talk about risk management today, we no longer call it risk management, we call it business continuity. It sounds so much more positive to say, I'm going to put in services that are going to make sure you're going to be continuing your productivity rather than I'm going to manage the risk in your environment. It sounds like something people are much more willing to put money towards. And it is actually a study that came out with TechCrunch. They reviewed a study by the Harvard Business Review that showed that most businesses over the last 5 to 6 years that went out of business, it wasn't because of poor economic times and they just couldn't make the money. It was because of a lack of proper business continuity and or risk management services, mostly having to do with simple things like hardware failure, and they lost all their data and couldn't get back up and running. So there's a resurgence in this need for business continuity services that we see in the managed service market. And that's why we see a lot of our partners come into the market saying, okay, well, we're entering managed services, and online backup and managed backup services seems to be the best way to start. And that's because it is. It's the most common type of service that everyone needs. So it's a great way to come in where we do offer now a total, like Shaylin was saying, end-to-end solution. Mobile backup, workstation backup, server backup, with both image-based backup and recovery options, as well as just simple file and folder recovery options.
And it looks like a few of you guys are experiencing this right now. Robert says he's using multiple backups, local data, local image, online data for Exchange and SQL as well. Eileen says that she's using Rev, RDX, and Tape for all of her customers. Well, we have got quite a treat for you. So I think if there aren't any questions about the industry and needs that need to be met by SMBs, let's go ahead and move on into what the SOS 360-degree partner program is. We like to call it a business in a box. This is because everything that you possibly need to start selling online backup to your customers is available to you. Not only can you sell it via rebrandable sales and marketing materials, but you can sell it online too. We have what we call a website template and a web integration package that works with integrated billing and a merchant gateway. And by the way, even if you're not in the United States, we do have merchant gateways that work in other countries. Simply ask your partner specialist about that.
And one thing that is really important to understand is our partner program is the pride of our business. It's what we put a lot of our focus into. The web integration package speaks to that specifically. The reason we came up with this package, which is an integration of multiple systems, so we take APIs from the SOS system, APIs from various merchant gateways like PayPal, Authorize.net, eWay for our Australian and New Zealand partners, and content management systems, so you have some web-facing control, is we saw that a lot of our partners who went into an API integration phase were taking somewhere between 2 and as many as 6 months and spending somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. And really the last straw was a partner who spent about $17,000 on doing some integration work with our system and a couple of others. So we decided, hey, let's help our partners out and let's put a web integration package together for them. It'll allow them to have predetermined integrations into the most common type of merchant gateways we see people using, as well as the ability to have, again, control over customer-facing content, email campaign tool, a support mechanism, and just really gives you a lot of flexibility in multiple tools if you don't have the resources or the expertise to do your own integration work. If you do, then we have APIs available for you as well. But this program comes as a standard part of our program. There's no added fee per month or per year for it. Just simply get us a domain and we'll go ahead and set this up for you. And if you want the APIs, then you can have those instead.
So this is a lot of stuff, right? It really is what we feel is a business in a box. So how do we compare? How do we stack up against some other companies that have online backup partnership programs. Well, here's a little chart comparing us against Intronis, Joyence, Segra, and XZ. If you have any questions or concerns about data center location, I think that you'll find that our data center locations are probably broader, more expansive, and greater in number than many other partnership programs out there. We have data centers in the UK, US, Canada, Australia, India, and the Ukraine. We offer hosted billing, like I said. We offer merchant gateway integration. We offer a website template, which is customizable and rebrandable for you. You can use your logo on it. You can use your colors. We offer rebranded sales materials. We offer rebranded marketing materials. So presentations like this, like the one you're looking at today, are available for you to customize. Rebranded client. You can put your logo on our client. And we also offer partner support. And also, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the price. Later on in the presentation, we will look at what kind of margin and what kind of revenue you can be making on a recurring basis with our different programs. And of course, our system includes Exchange backup, SQL backup, and Windows backup, not to mention total endpoint protection for workstations and laptops, like we mentioned earlier.
If I could jump in there also, one important element to this, going back to the data centers, is the security of the data. And sometimes that gets overlooked by some of the providers. And it's important to note that all of our data centers are SSAE 16 certified for the highest level of data infrastructure certification that's available. So the data that goes to our data centers is redundant, and it's in the safest possible mechanism that's available. And you look at some of the other competitors on this grid, and they only have one or at most two data centers, and you don't necessarily get that highest level of data integrity with that. So that is a strong point for SOS Online Backup, and I thought worth noting.
Another great point on this screen is that no hardware is required with our system. A lot of partner programs require you to purchase a box, a rather large box, for several $1,000s. We do not do that. Your partnership program can be started on a monthly basis and requires a minimal startup fee.
And we have some questions I'd like to address real quickly. So Darren asks, is SOS compatible with rsync or FTP? No, Darren, we have our own proprietary transfer protocols that we use, and they're much more secure than either of those. So it's not as simple as just throwing data over an FTP. Another question from Greg, do you support Intuit Payment Gateway? No, we don't. And if you needed to have integration into an Intuit system, we certainly have strategic development partners that could work with you and quote you out on that work, or we could provide you with the APIs so that you and your staff could handle that in-house. Another question, Robert says, great, I was just going to ask about the API for us to use. Awesome, well you certainly have access to that. Philip asks, is out-of-hours support available if needed? Yeah, we have 24/5 technical support, and we're looking to upgrade to a limited but a 24/7 support. So it would be limited weekend support, but that's still in the process of rolling out.
So to clarify, the 8x5 that's mentioned here is Los Angeles based. So we do have overflow call centers that are just as capable of handling your questions 24/5.
And a question from Robert, rebranded client for mobile applications, Android and iPhone. We have generic, we just released actually the generic iPhone application. Unfortunately, Apple requires that we can't hide our developer name, so it's managed offsite backup, published by SOS Online Backup. The Android application, we will have a generic version, but we do rebrand a mobile portal. So it would be managedoffsitebackup.net/your company name, and this would be a mobile portal that can work on any device. It allows for access to the backups, access and sharing. Eileen asks, we're looking into working with medical practices in the U.S., so are you HIPAA compliant? Absolutely. So the medical industry is actually one of our specialties, being that our security is not just up to date with the most standards, but it's way ahead of what HIPAA requires. You know, we're not government run, so we're much faster than they are to update our security.
And that goes to answer Josh's question, how strong is encryption for customers who want to know? Well, it's military grade, which means it's 3 tiers. It is backed up. It's encrypted locally, in transit, and at the data center.
So we do a 256-bit AES locally. We transfer over 128-bit SSL, and then we store an additional 1024-bit AES at the data center. And then there's another question, backup for Unix and Apple. Right now we are rolling out a Mac generic version, so there are a lot of items coming out that will be released. We'll have a generic Mac probably in the next 2 to 3 months, so we're excited to be releasing that. If you want to see the Mac product as it is, SOS branded, it's available on our download site. So if you call your partner specialist and you get a trial account set up, you can use any of the products that we have available on that product page.
And Juan has a question about pricing. Juan, we will get there very soon, I promise. And then if you have any questions about it there, our VP of Sales, Jeff McCauley, is in the room, and he would be happy to answer your questions for you. I want to go through this slide just very, very quickly. This is just a picture of how all-encompassing the SOS Online Backup product suite is. We can back up entire businesses. We can back up consumers. We can back up small businesses. Everything is here for you to be able to sell to consumers as well as almost any size of business. This slide goes over the SOS ServerSafe features and benefits. Remember earlier when we mentioned what kind of features do you need to offer in order to back up SMBs, in order to back up more SMBs than you currently are, and in order to make more recurring revenue than you currently are on online backup? Well, you need to offer Exchange backup and granular recovery, which our reseller program includes. You need to offer bare metal backup, and this could be bare metal backup for Windows servers, SQL servers, SharePoint servers, and file servers. We also include an online backup and recovery manager, which is key for endpoint protection, key for laptops, workstations, and you can back up up to 1,000 of them with our entry-level program. Premier Web Integration. This is, again, our website integration template that we discussed. This allows you to sell online backup on your own website. And Derek mentioned earlier that some of our partners previously, before we came out with this bit of the program, had spent over $10,000 on developing their own websites. We don't have to do that anymore. This is included in the program.
And again, they hit on the online backup and the web integration. Again, it's still estimated that about 60% of a business's data resides on the extremities of your network, on individual workstations and laptops. Despite our best efforts as IT professionals to try to centralize things through various setups in your local environment, you're going to have people working from home and data just won't be centralized. So being able to have the online backup and recovery manager installed at each workstation backup, or at each workstation laptop, your laptop fleets, they can back up at a much faster pace because the backup sets are simpler, and it gives you further protection for your business. And that really is something that is newly viable with very good online backup programs. And that's what we've been doing so well for so many years. And now we've added it in, again, end-to-end protection. And again, with the web integration package, you have the ability, you have the tools to populate website information, buttons, articles, really whatever you like within the confines of the content management system.
And Juan wants to know if you will all receive a copy of the presentation for future reference. You will receive a recording of the presentation tomorrow in your email, and you can also ask your partner specialist for a copy of this presentation. So let's talk a little bit more about the competitive features of SOS ServerSafe, and we'll go through this quickly because I know that we all really want to get to a demo. So the purpose of this slide is to talk about how different SOS ServerSafe for Business, which is just file and folder backup, and SOS Online Backup for Business, excuse me, and SOS ServerSafe is from some of our standard competitors that are very prevalent in the market, such as Carbonite. You guys probably know that Carbonite doesn't do bare metal backup to the cloud. It doesn't do transactionally consistent bare metal backup. It doesn't do system state and app data backup. But SOS ServerSafe does. So if you are doing online backup for small to medium-sized businesses, let's say a doctor's office, a medical practice, or a CPA firm, they're going to want to be able to securely back up their entire business, not just keep files for 30 days from one laptop. And we have a question from Juan. Won't a bare metal restore take too much to download, for example, a 100 gigabyte server?
And certainly, the backup and recovery methods are all about speed and access. And downloading an image from the cloud is certainly a last resort if you need it. But we do offer a service called Cloud Boot, and we charge at a weekly basis. And what we'll do is we'll actually mount your image in our cloud and give you an IP address that you can log into to access your data. So that gives you a viable image-based recovery method off-site.
Yep. So how does SOS Server Save compare against some of our other competitors that you guys may be looking at, may have heard of? Zenith, Intronus, and eVault. Again, this is a very, very comprehensive solution and also at a very fair and comprehensive price. SOS Server Save has a great deal of mobile flexibility, I will call it. We allow you to access, share, stream, and browse all your backups at any time. We allow you to back up a very large number of seats per account. Depending on the account that you purchase, you could back up to 5,000 seats. And we also offer transactionally consistent backups. Now, the reason that transitionally consistent bare metal backups matter is because when two servers are talking to each other, they need to know when they've stopped talking and back up accordingly so that they don't back up and possibly miss pieces of information that are in the middle of transfer. Greg asked, does the software have a local storage ability? Yes. You can absolutely back up locally if you want to. Phillips asks, a number of my customers use QuickBooks to manage their business accounting. Does SOS have any provisions for supporting QuickBooks data file backup?
So QuickBooks, anytime you're backing up a database, you want to make sure that you're going with the manufacturer's recommended backup strategy. They know their software, their database structure better than anyone. They wrote it, and they're going to give you specific items of how to back it up. Now, certain systems are based off of SQL, MySQL, most common database structure. So our image-based program will back those up appropriately. I know a lot of techs will just take the QBB file directly, but calling into it directly, they recommend that you actually create a backup file through the Intuit program, through QuickBooks, and go to Tools, create a backup, and then back up that backup file off-site with our system. So that's something that they still recommend heavily doing, and they said such that, if you don't do that, you are likely to lose pieces of information, as you're not going to grab everything by just having that QuickBooks data file.
Juan would like to know, is it possible to have a base recovery image and have a bare metal restore that only downloads the differences?
Let me read. So when you recover, it is a differential backup. So when you're backing up, and this is more of an advanced type of functionality, but you're going to have a differential backup. You're not going to back up a full image file every night. You just don't have the bandwidth to do that. So you will have just that incremental backup, but that's not really going to be that helpful for you. So I think maybe it'd be better to reevaluate your recovery strategy in that case. With the base recovery image locally, okay, yeah, no problem. What about Unix, Solaris, Linux server backup? No support for those systems at this point.
We are looking into it and hope to announce it later in the year, but presently no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and one way that our customers do back up those systems is we do support map drives, network drives. If you want to back up data from some network location, a network source, if you properly network those other operating systems, you can pull that information across the wire, but the online backup and the image system currently only operate from a Windows platform. But you can certainly pull data from other platforms as long as the software is installed on Windows.
Okay. So you might wonder what kind of updates, what kind of changes do we make to our SOS Server Save platform? Well, we recently released version 5.2 with a great deal of increased flexibility and speed. We actually upload probably faster than most online backup companies in the market. For example, in our office here, we have a 100 megabit per second connection. We can back up just that quickly in our office. So depending on your internet connection, we do not throttle you. And our new system is even faster than it was before. You can throttle if you want to, but we do not force you to. Let's kind of go through the competitive landscape very, very quickly. If any of you guys had looked into us maybe like a year or two ago, or even 8 months ago, you would know that we previously only offered file and folder backup. We recently, as of November 2011, started offering entire business backup. This is what I mean when I talk about total cloud backup for business. We back up all servers. We do bare metal backup. We do file and folder backup. We allow you to back up an entire business with SOS Server Safe. So now let's talk about pricing. And I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions here. You can enter this program, this reseller program, at $3.99 per month, and that gives you 5 server licenses. It also gives you 1 terabyte of data. And it's completely up to you and completely up to your client's needs how you provision that. If you were to enter that program, you would be able to make $246 per month per server backup. If you were selling more than that, you could make $2,326 per month. There's a huge amount of opportunity here. And by the way, this is based on our manufacturer suggested retail price of $129 per month per server, which is quite low. We have a lot of partners currently selling this package for $300 to $500 per month per server. Jeff, you want to add on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that this type of tiered program is a strong benefit for is it allows for an easy point of entry and then quick and easy scalability. So what you would do is first evaluate with your partner specialist what is the most meaningful point of entry. How many servers do you manage? What is the gigs associated with those servers? And as Shaylin mentioned, what we see most commonly for an average size server that would be somewhere between 50 to 100, 125 gigs is about $129 to $139 per month per server. So you don't certainly have to utilize all 5 licenses with your 1 terabyte in that entry program. You can use 1 license with a terabyte. It's whatever is meaningful for you. And then if you need to purchase just more gigabytes of cloud storage, for example, you can do so. And the equivalent of that is 12 cents a gig month. So it is exceptionally affordable and easy to move into different programs. It's very similar to your cell phone bill. You need a certain number of minutes. It costs you a certain amount a month. When you hire another employee or for some other reason need more minutes, you just call the phone company and then boom, you have more minutes. It's the same with us. You just give us a call. It's a number on a spreadsheet. If it takes more than 30 seconds, we're doing something wrong.
And what's awesome about that is when you call in to your partner specialist. And by the way, if you don't have a partner specialist, please type in the chat and let us know, and we'll make sure that you have somebody to talk to. What they will do is go through what we call an ROI analysis with you. And they will take information about your business and your clients and estimate for you what your return on investment would be by beginning to sell SOS Server Safe in your business. Juan wants some clarification on what is a server license. So let's say you start in at SOS Server Safe 5.1. Then you would be able to back up 1 type of each server with 1 license. So you could do 2 Exchange servers in different businesses. You could do 2 SQL servers in different businesses or in the same business, and then 1 file server. So you are able to fit and move and be flexible with whatever type of business needs you have by buying a server license.
And one, as you provision an account, it's going to basically ask you what type of account you're looking to provision. Is it just file and folder, in which case you'll just provision a certain number of gigs that are meaningful for that account? Or do you need to apply a server license, in which case you're going to enable that end user to have the enhanced, more robust functionality associated with bare metal and EGR. So that is the most fundamental difference between that. And in that first package there, you get 5 instances of being able to assign those licenses, and you have 1 terabyte of cloud storage to provision along as well.
And we have some more questions about clarifying the licenses, backup versus server licenses. So again, you only need a license for a physical machine or a virtual machine, and that'll allow you to use the image-based backup tool as well as the Exchange granular recovery tool. For cloud backup, you don't need a license. You just need an online backup account with enough cloud space to handle the data you want to push off-site.
And I think with that, we'll get into a product demonstration.
Okay, so right now I'm going to load up our remote session with our Windows 2008 box running R2. All right. So let me get out of this one. Looks like this session was doing some install work.
Okay, good. It looks like Eileen knows who her partner specialist is. Eileen is working with Lori. Awesome. I'm glad. If anyone else doesn't know who their partner specialist is, please let us know, and Jeff and I will find out for you.
Okay, so let me make this a little clearer for you all. So just want to get a verification. Is everyone seeing the Server 2008 box? And you should see the ServerSafe application called Acme Online Backup, which is our faux example partner. Is everyone seeing this all right? Okay, good. So with ServerSafe, you see that ServerSafe is going to launch as an executable when you log in, and the branding will be based on the ownership of the account. So the account we're logged in with right now is SOS_tester_DW, and that belongs to our sample partner, Acme Online Backup. So here we have the 4 different applications that are included with ServerSafe. And actually, it's really just 3 applications. As Workstation Backup is more of just a function of the same Online Backup and Recovery Manager. So the Online Backup and Recovery Manager, again, this is what you'll use to get data off-site or to recover data from the SOS cloud. The Bare Metal Image Creator is a tool that you use for your image-based backups. To explain how the flow works a little better, we're going to go into our support section, and we're going to pull up a knowledge base article that explains how a typical deployment of our systems typically looks. So using the image-based backup, the file and folder backup, and then the off-site manager to go to the SOS cloud. So let's get into our knowledge base, search KB or knowledge base. And we're going to select SOS ServerSafe. And we have 2 articles that are good for this. We have How Should I Set Up SOS? And then a little simpler is Do I Need a Staging Server? Which typically cover the same ideas. So it's good to take a look at these articles. And they explain the use of the different applications. And then a little picture that you can reference for, in a typical environment, how would you deploy these items? And this one actually goes even further to actually give you specific swim lanes for where you're going to install it. Now these are the SOS names for some of these items. So when we say image stream, we mean Online Backup and Recovery Manager. And Online File and Folder Backup is the same thing. So Image Creator, we're going to install that on the servers that we want to get a full image-based backup on. Now again, we don't require that you purchase hardware from us. We're not in the hardware business. But if you are going to go off-site with the image-based backups, we do recommend that you first run the image-based backups to a staging machine or some local piece of hardware on your network that will house the backups locally, as well as be the jump point to the SOS cloud. The reason for this is just to save your production environment resources. So when we're processing the data through the various encryption and compression methods for the greater security, it does require some system resources. So you want to make sure that you're not pulling down your production machines just to get your backup running. So you can put any black box. You don't need a server OS. It can be, Windows 7 machine, 64-bit, loaded up with enough RAM and hard drive space to handle whatever data load you have. And then here you would install the Online Backup and Recovery Manager and go off-site with your image-based backups or your file and folder backups. For the workstations and laptops, you install the Online Backup and Recovery Manager directly on these machines and then just run the backups directly from those machines to the cloud. Typically, you see that these workstations in a business environment have somewhere around 8 to 10 gigs of data. If you're dealing with a lot of images or videos, maybe as many as 20 or 30 gigs. But after the initial backup is done, these backups happen very quickly. And you can run them every couple of hours, and it's really a good endpoint protection strategy. So that's how you set these up, and it's a good thing to come and review if you want some more detail about how the deployment works out. But back to the application, we have Exchange Granular Recovery. This is only needed for, again, recovery of the Exchange database. So to go through a quick demo, let's go ahead and open up Bare Metal Image Creator. We're going to have this wizard come up and just go through the tabs. We have a Disk Manager, which is a Windows Volume Manager. You don't really need to use it separately, as any volume management that you would need to do is done through the wizard. Backup Jobs tells you what backup job is, or jobs are scheduled. You can go and you can edit the details of each job. I'm going to go ahead and delete this so I can continue without any restrictions in scheduling, as it won't let you schedule over a backup job, as that would certainly run into some issues. Destination path, again, similar to Windows Volume Manager, you don't really need to use it alone. It's all handled within the wizard of either backup or recovery. And then the backup history, just a great way to come take a look at what's going on with your backups. So it gives you very plain English what's happening and tells you things like your destination drive is full, you need to open up some space. So back to the wizard, let's go ahead and just schedule a backup job for image-based backup. So we open this up, we hit next. We have a couple different views. You can go more of a visual or just plain text. And we'll select the Exchange Volume E. So we'll hit next. That's what we want to back up. Now it's asking us, okay, well, where do you want to back up this data to? So here we would define a network location. For this purpose, we're just going to use a virtual drive F. Now it's asking us to schedule. So you have your typical bare metal local strategies that you're familiar with. If you've been running backups for a while, you do your full backup every week and then incrementals throughout the week. And then you can set your retention periods to overwrite incrementals after so many weeks, so many sessions, whatever you'd like to do. If you're going off-site, we do recommend using a continuous incremental backup. This means that you're going to run one full backup as your base image, and then you're just going to run incremental backups for a long period of time. The reason this is new and exciting is because the recovery method means that all you have to do is select the most recent incremental, and it'll automatically append all the incrementals before it for a simple recovery. Whereas before, you had to recover the image and then each sequential incremental in order. And that's why we had typically this weekly scenario. But if you're going off-site, you really want to avoid the local procedures as well as the data transfer over the wire of that full image as much as you can. So the new strategy would be to run a full image and back it up off-site once, and then run incrementals and only back up the incremental files off-site for an entire quarter before you would go back to the full image, or even a full year before you go back and update a full image. It really depends on how you really want to work out things with your online backup storage. Again, we do have use VSS, so if you have some program that's using VSS, you would want to uninstall that. VSS doesn't like being shared, so you would run into issues if you have some other image-based program running already. So here with this schedule, we have a full backup running next, and then it's going to run incremental backups every day of the week between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and every hour. Now this is, for some purposes, maybe a little overkill, and you could put this up to run maybe every 2 hours, whatever you like. It depends what type of restore point objective and restore time objective you want to be able to define for your customers. So restore time objective, or RTO, is how quickly can we recover data. Your restore point objective, or RPO, is to which point are we restoring the data? Are we restoring it to an hour back, to 2 hours back, whatever it is. So if it's to 2 hours back, then your RPO is 2 hours. That means your exposure to data loss is only 2 hours. So it depends what kind of setup that your environment can handle and what you can provide to your customers. So we'll go ahead and select next. Here's some additional options for more compression. So standard compression is somewhere between about 55 and 70%, depending on the data set. If you go to high, it'll take a little longer, but maybe you're looking at compression between 65 and 80%. Again, depends upon the data set you're looking at. The compression will also determine how long this takes. So depending on your bandwidth, maybe you want it to spend the extra time compressing more. If you have decent internet connection speeds, then maybe the time's not worth it. It's really environment to decide. You can encrypt the backup locally if you so choose. For those of you with HIPAA compliance, you would need to do this. This is required. And if you are doing this, you would go to the advanced, and you would select the encryption algorithm that you're going to use for the local encryption. So you have RC4 128-bit, AES 128, and AES 256. Now again, if you're going off-site with our system, we are going to encrypt the data locally before we go off-site with it. So if you are encrypting, that means when you go off-site with our system, it may take a little more time, as it's going to be working on encrypting encrypted data. We have some commands here in the advanced options also that allows you to script out different behaviors pre-snapshot, post-snapshot, or post-backup. On the snapshot, it's important to note that our system is a transactionally consistent backup. It's not a crash-consistent backup. Everyone familiar with the difference? Anyone want a quick run-through? All right, a quick run-through for a couple of you. So a transactionally consistent backup means you're not going to lose any information. So the way it works out is, let's take, for example, a crash-consistent backup. Let's use some example. I'm going to use Juan and Eileen, okay? So Juan and Eileen are going to engage in this transaction, okay? Juan's going to buy a MiG fighter from Eileen for $1 million. Perfect.
Probably a pretty good deal.
Probably a pretty good deal. Fuel included. Eileen there's going to be a transaction here that has two parts. The first part is going to be removing $1 million from Juan's account, and the second part is going to be putting that $1 million into Eileen's account. So these transactions happen, split seconds apart. Maybe 3 milliseconds, whatever it is, but there's still time in between that. And a crash-consistent backup means the backup's going to act just like a crash. So if a crash were to happen in the middle of that transaction, there's no record of the funds leaving Juan's account. There would only be a transaction that it hasn't, like some transactions happened. So, and there's no record that says this is where it should have gone. The transaction only happens together. So in this case, crash happens right in the middle of that transaction. No one knows what happens to that amount of funds, and then you lose your record of it. Big bummer. A transactionally consistent backup negotiates with the database that's running and says, hey database, you got any transactions that you're currently in the middle of? And the database comes back and says, yeah, actually I am in the middle of something. And so the backup says, all right, well, as soon as you're done with that, pause for a second. I'm going to take a snapshot, and then you can continue. And that's what happens. So $1 million leaves Juan's account, goes to Eileen's account, all is great, and you don't lose any information or any transaction data. And again, that crash-consistent backup is what a lot of people are worried about when you go to their database and you say, okay, I'm just going to take a snapshot of this system. And that's why all manufacturers will say, look, you really need to stop the database and run a transactionally consistent backup, and run a full backup first so you can make sure that all the transactions have been finished. And it's important to note that not all systems are supported with are written with a VSS writer, so you're going to have, certain proprietary databases by smaller companies, usually older accounting systems or older database systems, where they don't have a VSS writer installed, and you're just going to have to stop that database and run a backup while it's closed. But for those databases that have VSS writer, which are most SQL databases, you're fine. I want to ask, is it compatible with P-Tree, Quantum that uses pervasive SQL, Workgroup Database Engine? Again, we're going to work with any database that works with a VSS writer. So it's really the responsibility of you to make sure that any database you're backing up is going to be compatible with that. And I believe for those you're good. But again, that's something that you really need to double check as you go through and set up backup strategies for your customers. So pre-snapshot, post-snapshot. So if you have an older database that doesn't have a VSS writer in it, then you could have a snapshot script that's going to stop that database. It'll take a snapshot and have another script that's going to start the database. And maybe post-backup, maybe you restart the system or whatever you want to do. So this is the type of thing that you would be able to do here. Question about transactionally consistent backups with QuickBooks from Philip. Yeah, I believe QuickBooks does have a VSS writer, so I think you'll be good to go. But again, that's not my program, and I can't really speak on behalf of Intuit. Go check with Intuit and make sure. So we give you the tools to get these things done, but it's really important that you verify with the manufacturer of whatever database that you are curious about. You shouldn't just take the word of what anyone would say, because again, that's not our specialty to talk on behalf of Intuit system. All right, so back to this, you have the encryption. You can split the image into the smaller chunks if that suits you for whatever purpose. You hit next, you get a summary of what's going on, and then you hit finish, and it's going to run at the next scheduled time, which will be top of the hour. So let's open up the online backup and recovery method first. Let me see if I can just launch this here. There we go. Oh, it's already running. Sorry. So here it is. So we have our online backup and recovery agent. Really simple. We go to set up online backup, gives us a Windows tree view, and we'd say, okay, well, the F drive is where we're storing all of our images, so let's select the F drive and let's go off-site with it. So we hit next. We set up a schedule for the online backup. Again, this is completely separate of the image backup, and you want to make sure that this is going to work out for you. So back up at the end of this wizard, or back up automatically without user intervention. That means on a schedule currently set for daily at 2 p.m.
So what's special about our backups is we say that we have unlimited versioning and unlimited file archiving. And the reason that we say that is because you literally can go back years at a time. If you've been backing up with us for 3 years, let's say you had a backup on January 1st, 2011. You can go back to January 1st, 2011 and recover that version of that data. This is really important to businesses, particularly like medical practices and legal offices, or maybe businesses that are handling a lot of financial documents.
Definitely. And what we have here is backing up Windows users not logged on. So if you're Windows domain environments, if you need access to, if you need domain permissions, which is common in business environments, you check this box, and as I just did, you enter your domain credentials, and then you'll be good to go. So you have send email reports, the following, so we could put multiple email addresses if we want multiple people to see the reports. Reports give you information about total files backed up, files not changed, errors on files, and then it gives you the specific file path and the description of the error that happened for the top 20 errors. So that gives you great information if you ever need to contact our support staff, is you just send them that email as well, and it'll let you know what's going on. Eileen asks, so the pricing is based on how much you back up, not how often you back up. Correct. So if you have a file, and a file is recognized as the same file by complete file path, beginning with the machine name, ending with the file extension, and if that file has changed and you just save over it, the system looks at the last modified date and it'll back it up again. So you can have versions that go back, hundreds of days, and you're only charged for the largest version of that file, not for all all the versions of that file, and all the versions can be restored independently. So we hit finish, and then it'll run a backup on that method. If we go to restore, we have a restore wizard, online restore, and it's going to bring up a calendar view. So again, to Shaylin's point, you can pull out this calendar view, and you can go back years, months, whatever it is, and get to the point that you'd like to recover to. The bold dates tell you the dates that there are valid backups from. So I'm just going to select the most recent. We'll hit next. And you see all the different machines that we've backed up data from on this account. So I can just select an entire machine, and I can hit, okay, let's go ahead and recover that. Or I can expand this machine down a little more and just select the specific folder or the specific files I'd like to back up or recover. And hit next, and it'll download that information. So for this purpose, we'd say, okay, let's go left to DML3, the F drive, and here are our images. And we could just say, okay, let's just get all these back, or let's arrange by the name. Actually, the classic view is my preference for recovery because you can expand the screen and see a little more. But here you can see the date modified of all these files. And if there were versions, which images won't have versions, you can just select this box and it'll give you a drop down that's very simple to read, and you can see how many different types of versions you have for that specific machine. So let's see if we have any, I believe we have any versions to look at. So here's a version of this log file that you can see. All right, so then we say, okay, let's go ahead and download this image, and we're going to recover it. So once we have the image back, then we'd open Bare Metal Image Creator, or you could just right-click and say recover as well. So Bare Metal Image Creator, we go back to the wizard, and we say, let's go ahead and restore. We hit next. Say, okay, well, where do you want to restore from? And we say, okay, well, yeah, this F drive looks good. Let's pick backup job 4. And then it says, okay, in backup job 4, we recognize a lot of incrementals. Which one would you like to recover to? And again, this goes to that intelligent recovery file chain. So back to backup 19, hit next. And then it says, okay, well, where do you want to recover this? So this would be what we would do for a system that's crashed. So we would select to overwrite an entire drive. Now, we don't want to do that because our system's up and running, and we don't need a demo or boot disk environment. More commonly, we use Explore Backup, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select a backup job, select the incremental that we want to get, so let's take the most recent, and then it's going to ask us, okay, well, what virtual drive letter do you want to create and populate with this information from this image? So we can select, I, whatever it is. We can make it read-only if it's going to be a new backup destination file, or we could just uncheck it and say, no, this is actually data we're going to use. So I'll restore to drive letter I. Again, it gives us the file chain it's going to restore from. Then hit finish, and it's going to recover from drive I. So here's virtual drive I, great. So now let's say, okay, we backed up the Exchange. Now let's open up the Exchange granular recovery item. We already have some information here selected, but let's select a new source file. So I go back to my computer, go to drive I, and I hit Exchange, go mailbox, and here's the EDB file. We hit open. It's going to automatically assume where the logs are. If the transaction logs are in a different place, you could browse and tell them so. Automatically selects the temporary file path, not a big temporary space, less than 500 megs, and that'd be big temporary space usage. So we hit OK, and it's going to populate up here. Oh, so we have it already opened, so it's not going to let us open it again. So wonderful. And then we would select our target. So selecting your target, you say, okay, click to a single mailbox or all mailboxes, and it's already connected. And it's going to authenticate based on the Windows user you have on this machine. So you don't need to install AGR on the same machine that you're backing up from. But you need to make sure that wherever you're installing AGR, your Windows user has the permissions to access the Exchange database, the one that you're selecting to recover to. So you can see that we could say, okay, let's say we want to search for a specific file. say, okay, let's search for folder. So we don't want to search for the target folder. We want to search for source. And we can select the search in multiple mailboxes or just all of them, which right now it's just going to search through all of them. And we need to find a specific attachment that has to do with management. So we search for a management document, however many people ever come to you with this, and you say, okay, when was it sent? They're like, oh, it was at the end of March. They're like, okay, you open this up, and you open the attachment, and they're like, is this the management guide you need? So yeah, that's the one. So okay, great. And this is, say, user 3 that needs this. So we just take this file, we drag and drop it over in the user 3's inbox, and we have a recovery. And it's that simple. Now we go over, and there it is. We could shift select all these and drag and drop them into this mailbox or to all the mailboxes. So you have a very simple granular recovery, very powerful tool there. Also, if you want to just move the entire mailbox or the entire mail server, you could just throw it on a new hardware, and it'll ask you, do you want to create the mailbox that don't exist? You say yes, and then you go through this process, and that's it. So it's a very powerful tool where you could go through and either do a granular recovery, which is something that you might do daily for your users, or if you were migrating the entire Exchange server to new hardware, you could do that with this tool as well. So you see that it's a very all-inclusive solution that gives you a very easy way of doing a lot.
So Derek, unfortunately, does have to depart to another meeting, but I will be here to try to answer any remaining questions that you have.
Yep, and a couple questions here that I'll answer before I go. One is it possible to have a bare metal restored to dissimilar hardware? Yes, absolutely. So that's a huge benefit to this program as well.
And Robert asked, Shadow Protect is from StorageCraft? Yes, it is. It is an industry-leading bare metal backup program, bare metal backup and restore program that we have partnered with. Backups for virtual machines, I don't believe we currently can, and if we can, it's limited to like Hyper-V, I believe. But it is best to check with your partner specialist. Privacy, who owns the data if a client leaves? If a client leaves you, it's up to you whether or not you want to continue to store it. We personally, as SOS employees, do not have any access to the data whatsoever. And to that point, that also resonates with our encryption, our military-grade encryption that is 3-tiered. That is a reason why we cannot access it. Nee asked, what about Mac Mini backup? We do backup Macs. I believe Mac Mini is a workstation effectively. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Nee. And if it is, then yes. It is a server. Then no, I do not believe we can. I'm sorry. Again, Linux and Mac server backup is going to be coming later on in this year. I can't give you an actual timeline, but our goal as an organization is to be able to back up anything and everything you've got. Like, for example, Ken, our CEO, likes to tell a story about a refrigerator, I believe it was, a refrigerator that was powered by an Android operating system. Because it's an Android operating system, we can back that up. We could literally back up the refrigerator. So we've still got 21 people on the line. Robert says he does not know who his rep is. Well, Robert, we will fix that. Don't you worry. Are there any other questions? We would absolutely love to get you guys in the program as soon as we can. So if a barrier to that is knowing who your representative is, please let me know, and I will have them contact you. Again, any of you who have asked a question today, thank you very much, and you will be entered into the drawing for a Kindle. Robert asked, is SOS Collaborate part of the reseller program? No, Robert, it is not. Josh asked, what is the cost to join? The entry point to joining is $3.99 per month. You can save money if you purchase an annual plan. The entry level is $3.99 per month. And your representative will do an ROI analysis with you to find out, based on your client base, how much revenue you can make with the program. Greg asked, when is the Kindle drawing? You will find out, I believe, by Monday from Jeff McCauley if you have won. Are there any plans to support other email servers such as Lotus Notes? Me asked that question. Yes, there are. I cannot tell you exactly when that will be available, but my safe and rough estimate is the end of this year. Okay, Juan is ready to sign off. Me is ready to sign off. Philip says, I have been speaking with the rep. Thanks for the presentation. It filled in some information that I needed. Robert also had a great presentation. Greg asked, if I currently have Shadow Protect installed on a server for local backup, can I adjust it to work with your system, or would I need to reinstall? Greg, I'm really sorry. I'm afraid if I answer that question, it would be wrong. So I will find out the answer and speak with your representative and make sure that you get the answer, the correct answer to that question. Darren asked, can the branded site be configured to sell workstation online backup? Yes, absolutely. That is truly what it is for, to give you an online presence. I think with that, we are out of questions. Oh, Darren says only workstation and not server. Correct. At this moment, only workstation. Okay. If we are out of questions, we will go ahead and conclude the webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate your input and your time with us on this webinar, and I hope you have a lovely day.